I often come across videos showing the top 5 or the top 10 mistakes new or inexperienced riders make, but I don't recall seeing too often people listing the top 5 or 10 mistakes experienced riders actually do. So this is the short video today, is to kind of highlight and be somewhat vulnerable and discuss the mistakes or the bad habits that I have. No matter your level of experience, perfection doesn't exist. So like or not, you make mistakes. Bad habits are pretty much like addictions. We all know they're not good for us, but we have a hard time stopping or mitigating those bad habits. The key to eliminate bad habits or mistakes is, number one, accept them, realize you're doing that. And second is to kind of work hard and practice to mitigate those issues to arise in the future. I often say that the day we stop learning is actually the day we start dying, because as we all know, accidents or incidents with motorcycles are not very forgiving. So all it takes is a second or looking the wrong way. All it takes is a fraction of time to create consequences that can be devastating for us and our families. I'm opening myself here to criticism. However, I believe if I highlight or share my top 5 mistakes or bad habits, perhaps you guys can share some tips or suggestions for me to address them. Hello YouTube land, welcome back to the channel. I'm Eddie and this is Windy Therapy. Happy New Year, welcome back. Before I start, I really encourage you guys to actually reflect about your own bad habits or mistakes on your own. I would love to hear what they are and what you do to address them at the end of the video. Number one, not assessing the parking spot before committing to it. Way too often I find myself in a bind because I end up parking in a spot or area that are not the best place for a heavy motorcycle like mine. That includes parking in a downslope, in gravel areas, in areas that might be soft or have sand. The first time I dropped my bike was when I parked in a slightly downhill slope and having the motorcycle fully loaded with my camping gear, not only inside of the panniers, but actually behind myself. So the motorcycle was very heavy, sadly, top heavy. And as I was walking back, I ended up putting my foot on a gravel patch. My foot slipped, the bike started tilting, and in a heavy bike, as soon as goes beyond 10 or 15 degrees, if you're sitting on it, it's very, very hard to pull it back. So I just saw that issue coming very slowly, and all I could do was to try to minimize the impact of the motorcycle onto the ground. That was my first motorcycle scratch on the left bag or pannier. And the first time, you never forget, right? If I had a smaller or a lighter motorcycle, clearly that wouldn't be an issue. So assessing your parking spot before you commit to it is very, very important. Actually, just last summer, when my riding friend and I were traveling in the Vancouver Island area, I just did that same mistake again. Now, when we both actually arrived at the hotel, the parking spot in front of our door was kind of a little bit downhill. Again, I didn't assess that stuff prior to committing. I should have actually gone backwards instead of going forwards. And again, it was a pain to try to walk back when we had to go out for dinner. Thankfully, because we were together, we were able to push each other out. He rides a Harley, so it's probably heavier than my motorcycle. But again, if you have someone to help you, it's not as bad, but still not ideal. So again, you need to assess the parking area before you commit. And that's really the lesson here. And that's really what I'm striving to do now, is when I come to a restaurant or a hotel, or whatever the case may be, before going to the parking spot itself, I stop for 5 seconds, I look around, I try to find a better or a safer area to park, and then I actually go. And if it's downhill, guess what? I park backwards. Number 2, the stiff arms syndrome. Basically, I'm not sure if it's just me or if you guys actually go through that as well, but even after riding all those years, when I'm going in long rides, I find myself with my arms locked in a position, kind of tense. And what that does after a while, if you're tense, from your arms up, then notice that your arms are tired and it goes all the way up to your shoulders and neck and down your back. And by the end of the day, you're just beat. And that just comes from not being relaxed. Again, it might be just me, but I find myself going like for hours and hours, and that just kind of speeds up the fatigue and the muscle pain that goes with it. How can we mitigate that? What I've been doing lately is what I heard being called as the chicken dance. And it's basically when I'm riding, after 45 minutes or so, or any time I kind of check myself out and realize I'm stiff, I do the chicken dance, right? I just go like this with my arms. And when you do this, 2 things happen. Number 1, if you were tense, you'll know. You're going to realize, Jesus, I was really tense. And doing that is just a reminder to your body to relax, right? So I'm doing that as often as I can. If I'm feeling I'm tense, I do the chicken dance. But at least in long trips, every 45 minutes to an hour, I just do a posture check. And that really helps me to reduce my fatigue and eliminate almost 100% the body pain that I used to feel in the past. And just remember, stiff chickens can't tango. Third, putting the motorcycle in neutral when you stop in the traffic light. This is a bad one for me. And that goes back to my Brazilian origins as a self-taught rider. I started riding when I was 12, never got any classes, used to ride with flip-flops, shorts, t-shirt, and no helmet. Sometimes I wonder how the hell I'm still alive, but that was my upbringing. And I didn't realize how dangerous this practice was until I moved to Canada and did my first motorcycle training. Full disclosure, every so often I still see myself doing that, putting the bike in neutral, but that I only do that in very special situations. I don't do that all the time. I'm more mindful about it. So I only do it if I'm in a traffic jam or in a longer traffic light. But still, I still find myself doing that. However, what I do now to mitigate, I'm very cautious when I do it, and I only do it when I realize I'm safe, meaning I'm stopped for a long period of time. Maybe there's an accident, maybe the traffic light takes forever to go green, but I make sure that all cars around me, 4 cars in one way, 4 cars on the other way, and around me are fully stopped. Then it gives me a little bit of more sense of security because I know nothing's happening around me. Is that 100%? Of course not. If there's a truck or a car coming and start piling people behind you or ahead of you, you might be in trouble. But odds are, if you feel or if you see a lot of cars not moving around you, like in a traffic jam, then minimizes the risk of getting rear-ended or hit by someone else. Number 4, not looking farther down the road, kind of looking very close to your front wheel. This is a bad one for me. It's a bad habit that I'm much, much better now. But that for me, it came from learning how to ride in Brazil, where we have lots of potholes, bad roads, stray dogs and cats running left and right, garbage, bricks. There are a lot of hazards when you're riding in third world countries. So that's my mindset when I'm riding. I'm always trying to anticipate hazards, close distance, instead looking down as we were trained, or how people suggest, kind of look where you're going, not where you are. So what can we do to improve or mitigate that? I guess it's a combination of action. So I'm more mindful about looking down to try to anticipate hazards, several cars ahead of me, mainly if I'm in a highway. However, right now what I do is a combination of those. I look close, I look far, and I keep checking my mirror. So I try to cycle this process. Now it's looking down, look close by, check my mirrors left and right, and keep doing that. So I don't think there's one size fits all. I don't think it's just looking down, like half a mile down the road. So for me, it's a combination of being mindful about everything's around you, not only far away, but also close by. Number 5, basically not trusting the motorcycle tires. This is one that I'm still working on it. I believe I'm much better than I used to, mainly because my motorcycle is a sport touring motorcycle, so it's meant for long or wide leaning angles. But it's still something that I'm practicing, right? I'm not there yet. I believe I can do more. I can lean more and try to minimize that. But I often see, and I've seen, sadly, some examples in real time where people get into a curve too hot, coming too fast, not knowing how the bend actually goes. So they come very fast, and sometimes they not have the best lane positioning. And what that does, they go wide and they end up going to the gravel or off-road, and God forbid, they can hit a guardrail or there's a cliff. So when you go wide, you never know what's going to happen, right? So, and when we're riding roads that we don't know, we're exposing ourselves to it, mainly if you don't practice lane positioning and how to navigate through different curves. How can we correct this? Number 1 is practice. However, I realize watching other people riding around me, even myself, most people don't realize how much lean angle tires can take, mainly in crotch rockets or touring bikes, sport touring bikes. They can take a lot of lean angle, right? But most people are actually afraid of leaning, right? So that's the holy shit moment that people face. They're coming too hot, and first thing they do, they panic, they apply the brakes, and sometimes, as we know, that's not the best answer. Instead, trusting the tires and leaning, right? So again, practice makes perfect. And the best place to practice this is actually in a track, right? I never had a chance of doing that. I hope I can do it in the future. I don't have tracks close by where I live, but that's in my bucket list. I need to go to the track and start learning and practicing how far I can lean safely. And at the end of the day, trusting the motorcycle and the tires, assuming, of course, the motorcycle is in good shape and the tires are in good condition and the tire pressure is correct. My rule of thumb right now is, and that's my mindset, if I realize I'm in that holy crap moment, I prefer taking the chance of leaning one way or the other, leaning as much as I can, and take the risk as a worst case scenario of having a low side, because when that happens, you're close to the ground and the injuries are typically very low or not at all if you have the right gear. Rather than not doing that, taking the risk, end up going wide and going off-road and going through a cliff or a guardrail, hitting a tree, you never know what you're gonna face. So the best case scenario, if you have to choose, is a low side slide, because you know what's ahead of you, you know if there's a car coming, and you can hold the bike as long as you can until you kind of get close to the ground. I went through that myself in Brazil, in the rain. I ended up having a situation like that I held the bike as long as I could, and I let it go when I was close to the ground. Didn't get hurt. So again, we need to trust the tires. Make sure you have good tires to start with, but you need to trust the tires and know and practice how far you can lean. And once you do that, you're gonna have more confidence facing curves that you don't know. And that's how the cookie crumbles. So these are my top 5 mistakes or bad habits, depending how you want to skin the cat. But number one, I accept them, acknowledge them, and I'm working to get better. Like, just because I've been writing more than 35 years, it doesn't mean I can stop. I'm always practicing. So I ask you, do they make sense? Do you do that? Or what kind of bad habits do you have? Please let us know in the comments down below. Let's share as much as we can, because that's really how we can help the community and help ourselves. Other than that, once again, Happy New Year. And remember, be safe, be good, and let's keep the rubber side down. Cheers.